Welcome back to another episode of the Flying G Huddle, your inside look into Gladwin football. I'm Casey Campbell. I am your host. We are pleased to be joined each and every week by Gladwin head football coach Mark Jarsfer. Welcome back, Mark.
Yeah, doing good. It's feeling extra fall out today with the cold weather and
Absolutely.
the rain.
Yeah, absolutely. Big win, another win this week against Midland Bullet Creek. Kind of take us through the game because it was a physical game out there.
Yeah, I mean, Bullet Creek is a good opponent. They are absolutely massive, like I talked about in the show last week leading into this game, and they have backs that run really hard, and they're pretty fundamentally sound on defense. And so when you put all of that together, it makes for a tough challenge, and they certainly gave us all that we wanted. They came out and took a 6-0 lead. We were able to answer and make it 7-6. And then we followed it up with a second touchdown right before the half, very similar to what we did the prior week, and being able to execute kind of a 2-minute offense and go down and get points right before the half. And so I was really proud of that. And then that was kind of our halftime score was at 14-6, and so much closer than we would have preferred. It was a tough week for us, dealing with injuries and illness and all of that kind of stuff. And when we came out in that first half, I felt like we were feeling it a little bit. Our guys were pretty flat, I think. Just kind of going through the motions a little bit. And so that was a big part of our halftime talk is just finding some passion and having a little bit of pride in our play and that kind of stuff. And we came out, and I thought that was more evident in the second half, and our play reflected it. And so, from there, it was kind of like a back and forth. We ended up winning final score of 28-18. In the fourth quarter, they were able to get on the board, and it came down to kind of a really critical 2-point conversion, in my opinion. When we were up 28-18, we took a timeout and made sure that we had our defense understanding the importance of that, because if they obviously got the 2-point, now it's a 1-score game with it being 28-20. And so we wanted our guys to understand that, get a little bit of a breather. And Bullet Creek called a nice play there, and Harvey Grove was coming off the edge and able to get his hand just enough on the football to break it up. And that kind of cemented things, a little bit. Obviously, we still had to play the last few minutes of it, but with that being the difference and making it a 2-score game instead of a 1-score game, that was big. But like I said, Bullet Creek is a good opponent. They're going to fit into our new league very nicely, and I'm glad that this portion of our season is over, because every week, like we talked about in the preseason, was just big, physical, hard-running teams, and we certainly feel that, having just played that through.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get to, so we'll get kind of switching it up a little bit. We'll talk about obviously the this week's opponent at the end of the episode, but it is crossover week. I'll just let you know who everyone is playing now. Gladwin will face Sanford Meridian in the crossover. So obviously, if you know, the Jack Pine Conference is 2 divisions, 1 and 2. So we have the crossover matchup. So 1v1, 2, 3, 3, and so on. The Metro League is also doing this week in the Flint area, and then of course the KLA will do this in week 9. So Ogama will be at Harrison, Clare will be at Pinconning, Gladwin will be at Meridian, Bullet Creek will be at St. Louis, and Shepherd will be at Farwell. And also big news this week, actually just today, Beaverton announced that they will not be playing. They will be forfeiting the game against Standish Sterling. So that's. So Standish Sterling will be credited with that win in their crossover matchup. So while we got there, let's talk about MVPs of the week.
Yeah, offensive MVP is definitely going to be a new name. As I alluded to, just a few seconds ago, injuries kind of have been stacking up for us a little bit. And, we lost our starting center, Gunnar Smith, in practice this week to an injury. And, our backup center was dealing with an injury of his own. And so we had to dip down into the JV team and pull up a sophomore, Dominic Davies. And like I said, that happened on Wednesday. And so right basically at the end of practice too. So Dominic came over and got maybe 5-10 minutes of practice with us on Wednesday. Scrambled to let him know exactly that he was going to be on varsity on Thursday morning. And then, he came with us to our walkthrough practice and I think his head was spinning a little bit. We have, hand signals, a bunch of different plays, in addition to what the JV does. Obviously we run the same base stuff, but it's just a different team. And so coming in and being able to execute, and his snaps were all really, really good. He did a good job learning all the hand signals essentially overnight, and really played well for us, which is just so important to be able to, dip down into that team and take a guy if you need him. And so, like we always talk about with our JV team, that they're a developmental program and getting guys ready for varsity. And they certainly did the job with this one, because Dominic played really well for us. And without him, we would have really been scrambling.
Yeah, defensive MVP.
Defensive MVP would have to be Preston Willert. He was literally all over the place on Friday night. I think he ended up with 9 or 10 tackles, a tackle for a loss. He had, a rushing touchdown, 100 plus rushing yards, just completely stuffed the stat sheet. But, he's one of those guys that I've talked about on here before, of just we go as he goes on defense. And he certainly, brought it on Friday night, and it was good to see him making some of those big plays and showing emotion and kind of setting the tone for our team. And so he's our defensive MVP. As far as the special teams MVP, I'm going to give that to Harvey Grove. At the beginning of the season, he was not our long snapper, and we were having some inconsistent snaps and that kind of thing. And so we moved him into that role for both extra points and punts. And he's really done a nice job. I mean, I've talked about it the last few weeks, Eric Rogo being 8 for 8, or, in this case, he was 4 for 4. And so it's easy to give it to him. But I mean, the most critical, first step in that whole process is definitely the snap. And so Harvey's really done a good job with that. He gets it back. Trace Corlew does a nice job holding for us, and then Eric obviously is very consistent in kicking them through. And so just shout out to Harvey for getting that done for us on special teams.
Yeah. It's time for the JV team update. How'd they do this week?
Yeah, JV did well. Obviously played against Bullet Creek as well. Moved the record to 6-1 with a 38-20 win. And so, they had to fight through a little bit of their own adversity, right? Like, you lose your starting center basically, 24 hours before your game. And so they had to scramble and move some pieces around and that sort of thing. And they did it and kind of took care of business. And so that's exactly how it's supposed to work, with a JV team. And those guys just continue to get better and better, and they're stacking wins along the way. And so excited to see them finish out the last 2 games of their season, and hopefully they can get to 8-1.
Yeah. How'd the middle school programs do this week?
Middle school split again this week. They played against Saginaw, and so our 7th grade won and moved their record to 4-1, which is honestly, impressive as it comes. We didn't know what to expect as far as the win-loss situation with these 2 new teams coming on board and into our program and running our stuff. But they've really done a nice job and are growing and developing and playing well for basically the whole season. 8th grade, lost another one that they were in, and they got exposed to a little bit of speed. Some of those Saginaw kids were extremely fast. And so that's just part of the process. You play those games and continue to develop and continue to work. and get themselves in a good spot for playing on Thursdays next year.
Yeah. It's time to talk about a staff member this week.
Yeah, this week I'm going to talk about another volunteer, Jason Wendling. He actually has like the thankless job of doing our end zone cam and instant replay stuff. And so, each and every week he comes along with us to wherever we're playing on Friday night, and he sets all of that stuff up as kind of a one-man crew. Runs the whole end zone system from an iPad, and starts and stops the cameras, and all of that sends instant replay stuff down to our iPads on the sideline that we're able to use and make adjustments. And so this year we started out with Huddle sideline and had some issues with it, and this was, of course, was his first year, and so he had to learn that whole system. But with the issues that kept stacking up and just it being unreliable, we switched over after week 3 to Edge replay, which actually that was after week 4, and so we switched over to Edge replay, which was a whole new system he had to learn. And he's just one of those guys that takes it very, very seriously, and it truly is an important job. And as a volunteer, sacrificing his time. He has 2 senior daughters in Gladwin, and they're busy and got volleyball games and stuff like that, but he sacrifices time to come help us out, and we truly couldn't be more grateful, because that certainly is a big advantage, being able to have a reliable, consistent instant replay system for making adjustments on Friday nights.
Absolutely. All right. Now, of course, it is, as I mentioned earlier on in the show, it is, of course, the crossover week where the D1 teams will play the D2 teams. Sanford Meridian is up next for you guys, as all D1 teams will travel to the D2 sites. So coming into that matchup, what do you think?
Yeah, they're probably playing some of the best football from the Division II side right now. They're sitting there at 3-4. They started the season off with 4 straight losses, and then now they've rattled off 3 in a row. And this is a team that is extremely young, a ton of sophomores, and I think even a couple freshmen on this team, and very little upperclassmen. But that kind of reflects their growth over the course of the season, from starting out and taking a few losses in a row to sticking with it, and persevering over the course of the season, and developing, and all of those types of things. So like I said, they're playing extremely good football right now. It's one of those games that you have to take seriously. They're capable of beating us, without question. And so, that message will definitely be relayed to our guys, and they'll understand the significance of it, because we have goals of our own, right? And Meridian is likely fighting for their playoff lives, right? At 3-4, this win would go a long way in kind of helping them get into the playoffs, with the potential to finish 5-4. Without it, sitting there at 3-5, it's going to be much tougher to get in without having looked at the playoff point situation for them or anything like that. But I would assume that that's kind of how that's going to work. And so anytime a team has their backs against the wall, and they need wins to get in, they're going to give it their best shot, and they're going to be well prepared. And so that's kind of the story for that. They have a beautiful new facility over there as of last year, all new turf, and it's just an awesome place to play. And so we're excited for it and looking forward to it.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Flying G Huddle. Tune in next week where we'll recap this game against Sanford Meridian, and we'll preview Week 9's matchup against Frankenmuth. All right. We will talk to you then.